Hello, I am Erica Boboli, a metabolism mentor. In recent months, I have spent hundreds of hours researching why most people suffer from symptoms that are either untreatable or temporary. I work with a quantum device, the Meta Hunter, and through this I have found that those who come to me for help struggle with not one, but many symptoms. This video is about musculoskeletal problems, one of which is back pain. I treat musculoskeletal symptoms with the Fascia bioenergetic massage machine, which is actually a meridian massage. The essence of this is that the machine converts the mains current into biocurrent, and conducts this current with electrodes into two silver fiber gloves. With these gloves, I smooth the meridian paths according to a specific protocol, helping with detoxification, muscle relaxation and energy harmonization. According to traditional Chinese medicine, the energy flowing through the energy pathways, meridians, and the block in the free flow of qi causes physical symptoms. Before the blocks, the organs connected to the meridian overwork, and those connected after them underwork. In the first case, there is an excess of energy. In the second case, there is an energy deficiency. The lecturer who conducted our training, representing the manufacturers, promised many miraculous healings that can be achieved with this device. And indeed, the back pain can disappear during the first massage, and the pain remains for a week, but it reappears after 7 to 8 days, with different frequency for everyone. Some people get rid of their tennis elbow the first time. I didn't even know they had it, because we did the protocol because of the back pain. Or a hand that had been paralyzed for years was able to come to life after 5 sessions. However, the back pain and shoulder pain most often return. Massage alone may not be enough. Considering the measurements of Meta Hunter, not every massage guest requests such an analysis, but the more we measure, the more we can read that the energetic state of the lumbar nerves is directly related to the state of the pelvic organs and the colon. On the Meta Hunter monitor, we often see 6 pointed black squares on the lumbar nerve plexuses, which indicates a systemic block. It is useless to open the meridians and start the flow of qi with the Fascia massage if the continuous inflammatory noise coming from the intestinal tract closes the pathways again within days. Here comes the point in my research where I realized low back pain is not only a musculoskeletal issue, but also a biochemical issue. If the intestinal wall leaks, toxins irritate the vagus nerve, and the body reflexively tightens the lower back muscles in self-defense. It is as if an internal alarm is constantly growing armor around our spine. In this presentation, I will show you this invisible link and why metabolism is the missing piece that permanently stabilizes the results achieved during the massage. 4. The mechanism of the block. The case of a 30-year-old man. Why is massage not enough? Allow me to tell you the story of a young man in his 30s, who is a typical example of the hopelessness that many people struggle with today. He came to me already afraid of the doctor. Everyone was telling him about a herniated disc and surgeries with uncertain outcomes. In addition to his back pain, he was also being treated for severe depression. And although these seem to be two separate things, in the end you will see that they all stem from the same root. We started the treatment with the Fascia bioenergetic massage machine. As the biocurrent opened the meridians, the blocks began to dissolve. The result was spectacular. After the first session, he got out of bed without pain, and in a later meeting he even revealed that his tennis elbow had also disappeared, which we had not even discussed. This is the miracle of Fascia. It works even where we don't expect it. However, the Meta Hunter measurements showed something else in the background. The lumbar nerve icon was dotted with 6 black squares, as were the lumbar vertebrae icons. This indicated that although we had started the flow of qi, there was a deeper biochemical block in his nervous system. What happened next? His tennis book did not return, but his lower back pain, although with a tendency to ease, reappeared week after week. Why? Because the massage loosened the muscle armor, but the internal source, the imbalance of the intestinal flora and systemic inflammation, blew the fuse in the lumbar nerves again and again every week. This young man is not sick with his spine, but with his system. His depression and his lower back feed on the same inflamed intestinal flora. When the intestinal tract is inflamed, as indicated by the red color in the image, these connective tissues swell, become tight, and physically pull your waist backwards. It's like someone pulling an internal corset too tight around your spine. This is where MetaHunter comes in. The machine doesn't look at the disc, it looks at this inflammatory frequency. When we see the 6 pointed black squares on the lumbar nerves, it's actually a cry for help from the intestinal system, which travels through the connective tissues to your back. That's why we can't straighten up in such cases. The inflamed intestine physically won't let go of the spine. Back pain in this case is not a mistake, but a defensive reaction. And as for what it's protecting against, the answer is simple. Your body is protecting itself from injury and the spread of inflammation. When your intestinal system is on fire, inflamed, the nervous system reflexively puts a steel muscle armor around it to fix and protect the area. This tension blocks movements so that no more irritation can reach your internal organs. So back pain is not the problem, but your bodyguard's response to an internal emergency. 5. The gut secret of low back pain. Look at this diagram. Here you can see the real, hidden anatomy of low back pain. The red area in the middle of the picture is the inflamed gut, which is in direct proximity to the lumbar vertebrae and the nerves that exit from them. Why is it a secret? Because the traditional view only looks at the bone, disc, and muscle. But in reality, your gut is not floating in your abdominal cavity. It is attached to your spine by strong connective tissue sheets called fascia. Academic medicine separates orthopedics and internal medicine. The orthopedic doctor looks at the bone and muscle, and the gastroenterologist looks at the gut, but neither of them systematically addresses the biological bridge between the two, the fascia and metabolism. When you go to an excellent orthopedist with your back pain, he will examine your spine to the best of his ability. But don't expect him to take into account the condition of your gut, because in medical school they teach these in separate departments. He is an orthopedist, not a gastroenterologist. That is the essence of metabolism. We do not look at the body separately by organ system, but connect the dots where the boundaries of conventional medicine end. The essence of naturopathy is the holistic approach, which is missing from academic medicine. The gut secrets of back pain. What is happening in your body? Leaky gut and LPS, endotoxins, gram-negative bacterial fragments, called LPS, lipopolysaccharides, enter the circulation through the damaged intestinal wall. These maintain a constant, low-level inflammation throughout the body. Lectins, like molecular Velcro, are proteins that plants produce to prevent insects or rodents from eating them. They are indigestible, they stick to the sensitive cells of the intestinal wall and physically damage them, they puncture them. The connection with LPS is that lectins prepare the ground. They create the gaps in the intestinal wall through which LPS, bacterial fragments and neurotoxins then flow unhindered into the bloodstream. The poisoned nervous system, pathogens that multiply in the gut produce neurotoxins. These substances directly irritate the nerve endings, causing the nerves in the lower back to become hypersensitive and react with pain to stimuli that they otherwise shouldn't. Blockage of the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve. Inflammation in the gut sends a constant alarm signal to the brain via the vagus nerve. This keeps the body in a fight or flight, sympathetic state, which prevents tissue regeneration and increases muscle tone. Tightening fascia, a connective tissue chain reaction. The internal fascia layers above the inflamed gut, such as the peritoneum and the area around the psoas muscle, tighten in defense. Since everything in the body is interconnected, this tension pulls the connective tissue in the lower back, as if you were wearing a dress that is too tight from the inside. The psoas muscle, the gluteus maximus, is the deepest, most important hip flexor muscle in the body, connecting the lumbar spine to the femur, but most importantly, it runs directly behind the intestines. It plays a key role in stabilizing the trunk, walking, running, and sitting. It is often referred to as the soul muscle, as it can tighten under stress. And when you work sedentary, it shortens, which can lead to lower back pain and hip complaints. The effect of proximity. If the intestines are inflamed due to LPS and lectins, the body's defense mechanism causes the PS os to immediately spasm and shorten. The result of this shortening is pulling the lumbar vertebrae forward, increasing lordosis, the arch of the lower back, and you're ready for brutal lower back pain, which exercises cannot do because the reflex comes from the intestines. The connection between the diaphragm and the vagus. The diaphragm is not only responsible for breathing, but it is also intertwined with the PS os. They have common connective tissue points in the spine. When intestinal inflammation irritates the vagus nerve, the diaphragm tightens, breathing becomes shallow, and this further increases the tension of the PS os. The vice effect. The tense diaphragm and the spasmodic PS os hold the lumbar spine in a vice. That's why you feel like you can't straighten up, because these two muscles are pulling together from the inside, from the front. The gluteal muscles and diaphragm are the areas where intestinal inflammation physically bends the body. It is useless to massage your back if the gluteal muscles are constantly in spasm due to the inflamed intestines and pull the vertebrae forward. During metabolic reset, we release this internal vice by calming the intestines. That is why my clients can finally stand up straight again without pain. Five to two. A story that happened to a client of mine fits here. A 78-year-old lady said that she had not been able to stand up straight in the previous days, but she called the pharmacy where she has a good friend and asked for something. She was given a strong antispasmodic. This confirmed that medicine has a symptomatic treatment for the problem, but no solution. This type of symptomatic treatment is the biggest trap. It's like the oil light in your car coming on, and instead of filling it with oil, we paint the light black so you can't see it. The lady straightened up, but her metabolism continues to destroy her myelin sheaths and cartilage. I don't want to cover up the problem, I want to solve it at its root. Suppressing the symptom is not a cure. The strong antispasmodic or muscle relaxants simply turned off the alarm signal in the gluteus maximus and diaphragm. The inflammation remains there because of the LPS and lectins. Her intestinal wall continues to leak, but her brain no longer receives the pain message. The danger of a false sense of security. Since the lady no longer feels the tension, she puts pressure on her spine again as if everything is fine. But because the tissue environment, fascia and cartilage, are still inflamed and nutrient deprived, one wrong move can now cause a true structural tear or hernia because your body's natural defense mechanism, pain, has been eliminated. Insular myopia. The pharmacist or doctor gave you a fire-suppressing pill, but no one asked, "Mom, what did you like to eat? How is your bowels?" The fire alarm was removed, but the house continued to burn inside. Narrowed spinal canal and pressure. Chronic inflammation causes tissues to swell, edema occurs, and the fascia thickens. This internal tension can also physically narrow the space in the spinal canal, putting pressure on the spinal cord and the nerves that exit. In the spinal canal, putting pressure on the spinal cord and the nerves that exit. Insulin resistance and metabolic trap. Insulin resistance further worsens the situation by preventing the discs and tissues from receiving adequate nutrients, making them more vulnerable to mechanical stress. Although modern dietetics and most intestinal training promote lots of vegetables and fiber, for an inflamed intestinal tract, 30-deca salad is like rubbing an open wound with sandpaper. Lectins, especially in legumes, grains and potatoes, also constantly irritate the vagus nerve. Many people are afraid of what will happen to me without fiber. I tell you, inflamed fascia and leaky gut do not ask for fiber, but for rest and building material. During metabolic reset, we remove plants from our diet so that the chemical warfare in the intestine finally ceases and the body can focus on regeneration and myelin building instead of digestive cramps. 6. The pathway of inflammation. The gut is a gateway, leaky gut syndrome and low back pain. How do intestinal villi become leaky? Leaky gut syndrome is a condition in which the tight junctions between the cells of the intestinal wall are weakened or damaged. This causes the intestinal wall to become a sieve, allowing toxins, bacteria and undigested food particles to pass through into the bloodstream that would normally remain in the intestine. The space between the cells. The cells of the intestinal wall are normally held together by tight junctions, like zippers. When inflammation or the zonulin protein is triggered, these zippers loosen, creating gaps between the cells, allowing semi-digested food particles, toxins and pathogens to enter the space between the cells without hindrance. Here they immediately encounter cells of the immune system, which generates constant local inflammation. Another route is through the bloodstream. This is the systemic route. Once the barrier is broken, LPS, endotoxins, and other toxins enter the portal vein through the capillaries of the intestinal wall, then through the liver into the general circulation. From there, the bloodstream carries them throughout the body. This is how they reach the fascia and joints of the lumbar region. This is where a gut problem becomes distant pain. Circulating endotoxins create inflammatory foci in the connective tissues of the spine. The vagus nerve is the nerve pathway, the information superhighway. The vagus nerve provides a direct connection between the gut and the brain. Inflammatory cytokines in the gut and neurotoxins produced by bacteria irritate the endings of the vagus nerve. This alarm signal goes up to the brain, which in response commands the body to increase muscle tone and a stress response. This constant nerve stimulation keeps the deep back muscles and fascia in spasm, even when you're not lifting weights. 7-1. Pathogens and neurotoxins. Why does it hurt even where there is no injury? Imbalance of the intestinal flora, dysbiosis, the effect of neurotoxins produced by pathogens. The result is that the nervous system is stuck in a constant pain mode. The role of neurotoxins and latent viral infections, inflammation of the intestinal tract and a weakened immune system open the door for viruses that are already present in the body, but are latent. Herpes simplex, Epstein-Barr and cytomegalovirus settle in the nerve ganglia and cause low back pain in the following way: production of viral neurotoxins. During their life cycle, these viruses excrete byproducts, neurotoxin-like substances, which directly irritate the nerve sheaths. This causes a type of neuritis, which manifests as radiating pain in the lower back and legs. The mechanism of phantom pain: because viruses live along nerve pathways, their inflammation causes the brain to receive pain signals from the lower back area even when the vertebrae or discs are structurally intact. This is why they often don't see anything on an MRI scan. Fascia and viral debris. Viral waste and dead cell debris accumulate in the connective tissue, the fascia. This biological debris makes the fascia denser and stickier, which in turn loses its elasticity and begins to strain the spinal column. Immune system exhaustion. The body is constantly fighting these viruses in the gut and along the nerve pathways, which consumes the energy and nutrients that would be needed to regenerate the tissues around the spine. The three pathogens mentioned above, herpes simplex, Epstein-Barr, and cytomegalovirus, are already known to the general public, but there are a few noteworthy ones that we often see in abnormally high numbers during meta-hunter measurements. Among these, for example, anthrax is a bacterium that proved fatal in the case of a horse. 5 veterinarians already voted in favor of euthanizing the animal when the meta-hunter measurement found this pathogen in its thyroid gland, and after an hour and a half of treatment, the horse, which had been sentenced to death several times, stood up and, 2 years later, at the age of 21, is still happily treating children who sit on it. Anthrax is indeed the best-known neurotoxin-producing bacteria in science, because of the anthrax toxin, but fortunately we rarely encounter it in the context of back pain. However, there are much more common, everyday pathogens that poison the nerves in exactly the same way. It is worth mentioning these names, because they are the background for many symptoms. 7-2. Hidden killers in the gut. Such as Borrelia burgdorferi, Lyme. This is the king of neurotoxins in practice. The Lyme bacterium releases toxins that have a special affinity for nerves and joints. It often causes migrating low back pain that does not respond to exercise. The other is Clostridium species, botulinum tetani. These bacteria, multiplying in the intestinal tract, in the case of dysbiosis, produce such strong neurotoxins that block or overstimulate nerve muscle transmission. This can directly lead to constant spasmodic tension of the muscles around the waist. The third group is Streptococci and Staphylococci. Certain strains release exotoxins that, when entering the bloodstream, cause systemic inflammation and nerve irritation through the leaky gut. The fourth group is Candida albicans and other fungal species. During the metabolism of fungi, more than 70 toxins are produced, including acetaldehyde, which causes brain fog and nerve sensitivity. This also impairs the function of the vagus nerve. Anthrax is an acute, life-threatening infection, not a background factor causing chronic back pain, but Lyme and Clostridium are exactly the hidden killers that sit in your patient's intestines and nerves for years, maintaining their back pain. 1. The list of internal toxins. These viruses, Epstein-Barr, herpes, cytomegalovirus, cause nerve sheath irritation. Among the bacteria, Lyme and Clostridium cause muscle spasms, and fungi, Candida, produce metabolic toxins. 8-1 Why is insulin resistance the engine of back pain? Insulin resistance is the regeneration barrier of the spine. Sugar-coated fascia and glycation. High blood sugar literally cooks the collagen fibers. The elastic connective tissue becomes stiff, vulnerable, and brittle, starving spinal discs. Insulin resistance blocks cellular nutrient uptake. The disc receives no fuel, therefore it dries out prematurely and flattens. Disc degeneration. Tissue swamp, meaning edema. High insulin binds sodium and water. The tension between tissues, the edema, presses the nerves and narrows the spinal canal. The fuel of inflammation. Insulin resistance maintains the inflammatory level that the LPS coming from the gut initiated. There is no healing as long as insulin is high. Insulin resistance is not only about sugar metabolism, but about tissue starvation and chronic inflammation. The starvation of discs and fascia. Along with high insulin levels, cells, cartilage cells, and fibroblasts cannot effectively absorb nutrients. Discs and fascia do not have their own blood vessel network. They feed through diffusion. If metabolism is blocked due to insulin resistance, these tissues degenerate, lose their elasticity, and tear or get injured much more easily, which leads to back pain. The effect of glycation, the sugar coating. In insulin resistance, the excess sugar circulating in the blood reacts with proteins. This is called glycation. This process literally sugars up, makes stiff and brittle the collagen fibers in the fascia and ligaments. The elastic lower back becomes a stiff, vulnerable area that reacts with pain to every movement. The reinforcement of inflammatory cytokines and LPS, insulin resistance in itself is an inflamed state. If we add the previously mentioned LPS coming from the leaky gut, the two processes reinforce each other. Due to insulin resistance, the body cannot turn off the inflammation, so the nerves and tissues around the lower back stand in a constant inflammatory bath. Water retention and edema. High insulin levels retain sodium and water in the tissues. This interstitial edema increases internal pressure inside the spinal canal and between the fascia layers, which directly irritates the nerves. Insulin resistance can be called the regeneration barrier. In vain is all exercise or treatment. If the metabolism reset does not happen, the body simply has nothing from which and no way how to rebuild the support structure around the spine. The picture shows the fascia network around the muscle. In insulin resistance, this clean spiderweb becomes sticky, sugary, and stiff. The correlations between insulin resistance and metabolism can be learned from my 4-part, 90-minute video material of the Metabolism Masterclass. In the end, the high insulin level blocks metabolism, and metabolism would be what supplies cells with nutrients. Therefore, insulin resistance is a serious factor in back pain as well. The trap of hyaluronic acid, help or glue. If someone pushes in high-dose hyaluronic acid alongside insulin resistance and existing inflammation, they often achieve exactly the opposite of what they wanted. Here is the biological explanation. Eight to 2. Why is hyaluronic acid poison in insulin-resistant inflammation? The sticky fascia effect. Hyaluronic acid is normally a water-clear, slippery lubricant. But in an inflammatory environment and alongside high insulin levels, the structure of hyaluronic acid changes, thickens, and becomes sticky. Instead of helping the fascia layers slide, it literally glues them together. This is what the Italian researchers, the Steccos, call densification. Edema and tension. Hyaluronic acid binds a huge amount of water. Due to the inflammatory environment, the extra hyaluronic acid drags even more water to the already edematous tissues. This further increases the tension inside the spinal canal and between the fascias, therefore the pain does not decrease but becomes more tense. Waste instead of nutrient. The cartilage does not primarily need hyaluronic acid, but rather for its cells, the chondrocytes, to get air. In an inflamed, stuck-together environment, hyaluronic acid cannot integrate into the cartilage, it just circulates in the interstitial space as an extra burden. Many buy expensive hyaluronic acid to lubricate their joints from the inside, but beware. If you have insulin resistance and your intestinal system is inflamed, this hyaluronic acid will not lubricate, but behaves like spilled honey. It glues the fascia layers together. This is what will make you feel that your lower back is even stiffer and moves with even more difficulty. First, the swamp must be cleaned out with the metabolism reset, and only after that should you think about the building blocks. Nine to 1. Why is a pinched nerve not the real cause? The sticky fascia, due to the inflammation, LPS, toxins, and insulin resistance, the lubricant between the fascia layers, hyaluronic acid, thickens and hardens. The layers do not slide over each other, but stick together. The inability to straighten up. When you stand up, this diamond-shaped plate does not stretch, but pulls your lower back as if you were wearing a leather jacket that is too tight. It is not the nerve that got pinched, but the tension of the fascia blocks the movement. False nerve symptoms. This tension can exert such brutal pressure on the sensory nerves running inside it that the patient thinks they have a hernia, whereas only their connective tissue is in a terrible state due to internal inflammations. The power center of the body, the thoracolumbar fascia, is not a muscle, but a tension network that stabilizes the entire torso. The sticking together is not a hernia. Due to intestinal inflammation and insulin resistance, this network loses its sliding capability and gets stuck. The physical barrier. If the fascia freezes, we cannot straighten up. It is as if an invisible hand were pulling our lower back backward. The solution is not stretching. In vain do you stretch it if the internal environment, the metabolism, is inflamed. Without the reset, the fascia tenses up again and again. 10. When even the massage therapist of world champions is helpless. The limitations of symptomatic treatment. Massage and exercise only treat the surface. The masseur loosened the thoracolumbar fascia, but the internal inflammation, the LPS, the leaky gut switches the nervous system back to emergency mode within 10 minutes. The message of foot reflexology. Why does your sole hurt when the massage does not? Because the reflex zones of the sole indicate the state of your internal organs, the intestinal system, and the inflammations, which a simple Swedish massage cannot reach. The pulling back force, the block after bending down during shoe tying, shows that the fascia network, the diamond-shaped sheet, was unable to adapt to the movement because it instantly stuck together again due to the metabolism of the internal environment and the toxins. And the story is that last year my back locked up on 3 occasions. At first, I tried physiotherapy. For 10 minutes movement was easy, then it pulled in again. I went to the masseur of world champions, who is my buddy of 20 years and my massage therapist, and he confirmed every time that I did not have a herniated disc. Yet along the foot reflexes, around the lumbar section of my spine, the pain appeared. I almost jumped off the bed. By the end of the massage everything loosened up, pain nowhere, easy movement. By the time I got dressed and tied my shoes, I could not straighten up completely again. Back then I did not know the reason, but my experienced massage therapist could not give an explanation for it either. Imagine, there I stood at 61 years old as a natural healer, a masseur, an NLS expert, and I did not understand what was happening. Then at the beginning of this year, because of a young guest of mine scheduled for a prosthesis, I started looking for the reasons. I dug deep into the topic, continuously asking questions so that the real truth would reveal itself, as he also lived according to average dietary advice. He ate well, exercised, biked, swam, had no excess weight, yet his hip was problematic. The Fascia massage helped his pain too, but this did not mean that the medical examinations found the cartilage fine, because damaged cartilage does not grow back from a massage alone. After hundreds of hours of research, I understood. It is not his hip, and in my case, it is not my back that is the trouble, but what is inside. My inflamed intestinal system and my metabolism blocked my healing. From this, the idea of the metabolism reset was born. 11-1 The cornerstones of the metabolism reset. The PKD protocol, the metabolism reset, the liberation of the vagus pathway, the retuning of the gut-brain axis. As long as the gut is inflamed, the vagus nerve sends a continuous emergency signal, pain, and tension to the brain. The reset stops this alarm, shutting off the inflammatory source. We do not treat the symptom with massage, for example, but the source through gut wall regeneration. If there is no LPS leakage, there is nothing to irritate the vagus nerve. Parasympathetic activation. The method switches the body back to rest and digest mode. Only in this state can the fascia relax and the swelling of the spinal canal subside. Chemical cleaning. We remove neurotoxins and virus remnants that make nerve communication noisy. The vagus nerve is the longest nerve in our body. This is what connects our thoughts with our intestinal system. If there is war in the gut due to LPS toxins, the vagus nerve transmits this tension into the paraspinal fascias as well. The metabolism reset is not a diet, but a biological command through the vagus nerve. You are safe now, you can let go of the tension. The special nutrients and the protocol of the metabolism reset actually cleanse this nerve pathway from the inflammatory noise. 12 When the body forgets to feed itself. The secret of nerve insulation and cartilage wear. Your question is justified. Okay, my gut is inflamed, but why did my cartilage break down? The myelin sheath and informational starvation. The myelin sheath is the insulation of the nerves. Due to insulin resistance and intestinal malabsorption, specific fats and vitamins are missing, such as vitamin B12 and high-quality cholesterol. This insulating layer thins out, and the nervous system short-circuits. The command from the brain for nutrient transport or regeneration simply fails to reach the joints. I should note here that damage to the myelin sheath is not unknown to science. In multiple sclerosis, it is precisely this insulating layer that is damaged, leading to severe mobility impairment. The mechanism of nutrient transport. Cartilage and joints do not have their own blood circulation. Nutrients are delivered to them by the pumping movement of surrounding tissues and microcirculation controlled by the nervous system. If the nerve impulse is weak due to myelin deficiency, the cartilage cells simply do not get to eat. The consequence is dehydration and flaking. Nutrient-deficient cartilage loses its water content, becomes brittle like dried-out soil, begins to crack, and then small pieces flake off from mechanical friction. This is the true, metabolism-based cause of classical joint wear, arthrosis. Peripheral symptoms: ganglion, bunion, knee pain. Ganglion and bunion. When the joint cannot regenerate properly, the body resorts to forced solutions as a survival strategy. It collects a gelatinous substance in the ganglion or produces bony growths at the bunion to stabilize the collapsing statics. The bunion, hallux valgus, and PKD. What to expect? Bony deformity does not reverse. If the bone structure has already physically shifted and a bony buildup has formed, the diet will not carve the bone back to its original place. This must be stated honestly. The inflammation and pain, however, will disappear. The constant swelling, redness, and throbbing pain around the bunion is actually inflammation of the soft tissues. The metabolism reset is capable of completely eliminating this inflammation. Regeneration of the supporting structure, fascia, and ligaments. While soft tissue cells are capable of renewal, the problem with the bunion is the collapse of the statics. The metabolic protocol helps strengthen the ligaments and fascia of the foot, so the process can be stopped, and the foot becomes load-bearing again without pain. Along with the metabolic protocol, in the case of an already developed bunion, we do not make the existing bony growth disappear, but we shut down the metabolic catastrophe behind it. It will no longer hurt, it will not worsen further, and the tissues of the foot will regain their elasticity. In the case of knee and elbow pain, these are just more distant points in the chain, where the hardware, the joint, fails due to the faulty software and nerve control. 13. The cornerstones of rebuilding. What do the myelin sheath and cartilage need? I emphasize that our body is made of fat and protein, not carbohydrates. Animal fats and cholesterol. This myelin sheath is the most important raw material for the insulation of nerves. Without cholesterol, there is no nerve regeneration. Specific proteins, the collagens, natural collagen extracted from bone broth and cartilaginous parts is essential for patching the gut wall and for the elasticity of cartilage. I emphasize natural collagen, and by no means collagen powders. The carbohydrate stop. To eliminate insulin resistance, we eliminate inflammatory sugars and starches, so our cells will finally hear the calling of insulin. The vegan example, when ideology meets biology. Many ask, what about vegans? Let me tell you a story about a lady who suffered a severe stroke after 35 years of veganism, and then a second one in the hospital. It was not the plant-based diet that brought her back from paralysis and cardiovascular collapse, but a meat-based diet following her husband's persistent research and pleading. In 2 years, her laboratory results and her condition completely normalized. When she shared this with her own community, they called her a liar. This case proves that the myelin sheath and the blood vessel walls are built not from ideology, but from animal fats. I will not beg anyone. It is your body, your pain, your choice. If someone clings to the vegan diet or has a meat aversion, I respect it, but I cannot help them in this protocol. Let them find another way for their symptoms, because the metabolism reset builds on the real nutrient requirement of the human body. 14. Very important warning. Medical contraindications. This is a safety regulation. For type 1 and type 2 diabetics, this protocol drastically and rapidly changes blood sugar levels and insulin requirements. Strict prohibition. It is forbidden for them to start this independently without supervision. The suggested transition can only be performed with a private clinic background, under strict medical control, and with continuous medication adjustment. There is a private clinic in Hungary that deals with this. 15. The super nutrients of the metabolism reset against back pain. Let's highlight the foods that act as medicine for the spine. Regeneration straight from the kitchen. The power of the protocol. Bone marrow and brain tissue. The most concentrated source of those phospholipids needed to rebuild your nerve pathways, the vagus nerve, and the myelin sheath. Organ meats, liver, heart, kidney, tongue, and nature's ultimate multivitamin bombs that provide energy for cartilage cells to renew. Sealing the gut wall. A high-fat animal diet helps close the tight junctions, the gaps between your gut epithelial cells, stopping lipopolysaccharide, LPS, leakage. Organ meats are nature's multivitamins. What do we gain from them? Vitamin A, retinol, D3, K2, B12, folate, iron, copper, choline, and coenzyme Q10. Why can we only utilize these from grass-fed, four-legged animals? Because they are present in bioactive form. The body does not need to convert them, unlike plant-based beta-carotene or synthetic vitamins. Thus, they absorb instantly into the myelin sheath and cartilage. Electrolytes. Proper sodium, potassium, and magnesium replenishment is essential for regeneration, ensuring the electrical conduction of nerves and the deep hydration of the fascia. Organ meats are not optional extras. They are the components of our spine. Why vegetables or drugstore pills cannot replace this is something I break down scientifically in my Metabolism Reset Masterclass. And let's not forget, without pure salt and electrolytes, our nervous system is exactly like a dead battery. This above knowledge, why the meat, organ meats, and fat of grass-fed, four-legged animals are important, and what electrolytes to take, is explained in the masterclass, as well as in the free video package. The problem is not you. I don't think that is how you stumbled upon this video, but if not, look for it on my channel and watch it because it is detailed there, or you can purchase and learn from the masterclass, a full 90-minute digital material. Alternatively, by entering the group, all information is at your disposal. 16. The result of the metabolism reset. What happens within 30 to 90 days? Disappearing edema. As the insulin level drops, accumulated water leaves. Pressure inside the spinal canal decreases. Fascia becomes flexible. Glycation, the sugar coating, stops. Connective tissue begins to slide smoothly again. The ability to stand up straight returns. Neurological silence. Neurotoxins are flushed out, the vagus nerve calms down, and phantom pains disappear. Movement without blocks, when the thoracolumbar fascia and the spine cooperate again. Sharp mind, clear focus. No more brain fog. With neurotoxins gone, the nervous system regains its speed. Cellular energy. By eliminating insulin resistance, the brain and muscles finally get real fuel. Quality of life over 60. Freedom from pain is not a question of age. It is a question of biology. 17. Why the 80% rule is not enough. The biology of either or. Many follow the protocol only up to 80% and ask me if they can eat this or that. As a mentor, my answer is always going to be no because it deviates from the protocol, and if you want results, then no. You can give yourself concessions, and then based on measurements, you will experience the results of that. Appearances are deceptive. At 80% compliance, you already feel your mind clearing, and your clothes size decreases due to the release of inflammatory water. This is motivating, but it's only the surface. The danger of the remaining 20% if you cheat sometimes is that the gut wall cannot fully fuse. These tight junctions reopen, and insulin resistance does not disappear. The remaining 20% keeps the inflammation alive. It is exactly like smoking. If instead of 20 cigarettes a day you only smoke 4, it means a lot to your lungs, but you cannot claim you are a non-smoker. Your body will not fully regenerate. The key to complete success for rebuilding the myelin sheath and regenerating cartilage is a strict, 100% protocol, at least in the intensive phase. Many ask, Erica, isn't it enough if I just do it 80%? I'll be honest, your well-being will be better, your pants will be looser, but your lower back will not heal. Why? Because our body's biology makes no compromise. For the leaky gut to close and the spinal canal swelling to subside, 100% purity is required. The 20% cheating is just enough to keep the inflammatory embers burning. If you want true deep healing, there is no, just a little cookie, or, just a slice of bread. You don't need to heal your back, you need to heal the chemical environment in which your spine lives. If the metabolism is restored, the body is capable of self-healing. Just like the therapeutic horse stood up, you too will be able to stand up straight again without pain. My dear viewers, I am showing you this picture with my bicycle because this freedom does not belong only to me. Back pain, a narrowed spinal canal, or agonizing brain fog do not come with age. They are a cry for help from our cells. At 61, I got my movement and the clarity of my thinking back with the metabolism reset. If you too want to escape the prison of inflammation and dull everyday life, do not wait any longer. What's next? 18. What's next? Unlock the complete framework through our exclusive Golden Treasury digital packages and premium groups on WAP and Systeme.io. Don't forget to follow the Money-festő YouTube channel for more life-changing insights and evolutionary protocols. Thank you for choosing the Golden Treasury for your cellular level freedom. See you on the path of inner freedom. I wish a successful metabolism to everyone.